For the Staten Island Advance, this is Mark Stein. As New York and New Jersey debate potentially legalizing recreational marijuana, the Advance and SILive.com have produced the United States of Weed, a multi-layered project which focuses on the possible impact legal weed could have on a local level. This special edition podcast is part of the series. I recently sat down with two of the lead reporters on the United States of Weed project, Amanda Steen and Kyle Lawson. The topic, a 5-day trip to Oregon to observe the role legalized marijuana plays in the community, from how police work to how seniors have reacted to the changes.
Before we get deep inside, exactly what happened out there, you guys have a great story, and I'd really like to hear it. And I think our readers would appreciate it too.
So this story, I guess, begins when Kyle and I went to a grow house where they grow marijuana. And at the end of the tour we went on, one of the, managers gifted us with a bunch of weed in different forms. One of them was a joint, and it was in like a little black canister. And so I just kind of, nonchalantly just put it in my glove box of the rental car we were driving. And fast forward to about 2 days later, Kyle and I are driving across Oregon into Idaho, where, fun fact, weed is not legal. So towards the end of the ride along, the police officer actually pulled over a vehicle, and it just so happened that he pulled over the vehicle as it was taking an exit into where Kyle and I had parked our rental car at a rest stop. And so the cop gets out, they're searching this guy's car, they're looking for weed, and then he's like, oh yeah, like it would be great, if I call in a canine. And I'm like, oh no, like, God, I'm gonna go to jail. I was like, that's it for me, I'm going to jail. So luckily they did bring in the canine, and my car was about 10 feet away, parked from the car that they were searching and had pulled over. And thank God that it did not.
The dog started going toward the car.
The dog literally walked right past our rental car. Yeah. And I don't think I've ever been more scared in my life.
And the dog didn't find any weed in this guy's car, but the dog smelled something.
Yeah.
So it could have been yours.
It could have been, because
our weed.
That car didn't smell. There was no scent coming.
No, but this is a canine.
Yeah.
I mean, they can
smell anything.
Yeah.
So it's something
definitely
New Yorkers,
a scary moment.
That's something people in New Jersey and New York could really look forward to if things become legalized in Jersey and New York.
I can definitely see, New York State investing in canines just like Idaho did to help them with, people who are trafficking marijuana from Jersey back into New York.
Definitely complicated stuff. Let's back up to when you guys first met in, September or whatever it was. You're all told about this weed project. What went through your minds when you were first told about the weed project? It's kind of neat. Is this a little crazy? Is this something you're looking forward to?
I still can't get past the fact that it's legal. In the United States, yeah. in Oregon, in any state, and the fact that now Massachusetts had just gone legal, but it was mostly West Coast states in the beginning,
right?
And so the idea of going out there, surreal. I wanted to say surreal.
You're both tasked with the project of, hey, we're sending you to Oregon. There's a lot of people working on this project. I don't need to name everyone's name. You can check them all out on SILive.com. But when you guys both find out you're going to Oregon, hey, by the way, we're going to pay for a trip to Oregon. That's pretty sweet. How did you lay out exactly where you're going to go, where you're going to stay, rental? How'd this all work?
Yeah, so we basically had about 3 or 4 interviews a day. And we were out there for roughly 5 days. One of those actually, one full day was dedicated to driving because we drove about 6 hours from Portland into Idaho. So, it was basically, nonstop. And even when we weren't, technically on the clock, Kyle is very good at striking up conversations with strangers, as a journalist must
Strip
do.
club bouncers.
It's a hobby.
So So anywhere we went, I would be sitting there chowing down on like a burger, and Kyle would just be chatting up the person next to him. So, you like to smoke weed? Just trying to talk to anyone that we could. And that's kind of how we stumbled across some of the people that we did interview.
There was a bouncer at one point who originally was from Los Angeles, and he explained that he had cousins, friends over the years. He was about in his 40s, and over the years, people that he knew were picked up on low-level weed charges.
Like possession, low-level dealing or anything like that?
Maybe some low-level dealing, but we're talking like an ounce, 2 ounces. Nobody's getting rich off this stuff, you know. And because of that charge, and they maybe did 6 months, came out, changed their lives around, but they had this charge on their record, and it wasn't going anywhere, and it changed their lives forever. I mean, it made it harder to get a decent job, to support their families. And now he explained he's watching people walk around the streets of Portland smoking, not all the time, but here and there, because it is technically illegal. And cops maybe giving them a fine, and that's the worst case scenario. And possession, of course, is legal. You can buy it and everything else. So for him, it was even, I think, more mind-blowing than your typical person.
Let's get into the mind-blowing part. He must be blown away from L.A., sitting in Oregon, watching people just toke around him. Why is this so important for us in New York and Staten Island with this happening? Possibly in New Jersey, possibly here. It touches on the economy, I'd imagine. It touches on the way of life, medical. If you guys could speak a little bit about, the significance of this project and why you guys really went out there. And
the economy is a big part, because you figure they're looking at, officials in New Jersey and New York are looking at the tax revenue, the tax boost in Oregon and other states that have legalized. In New Jersey, the estimate is about $300 million a year. All said and done, that includes New Yorkers' money and people from Pennsylvania, their dollars that would be crossing over. So it would be huge. And in Oregon, they just used $85 million to help schools and police departments. So the benefit could be huge. And the jobs, there is the opportunity for job creation, not so much the scientists and not even so much the business owners, but delivery drivers, marketing, laborers, to run the grow houses and the people to work in the dispensaries, that type of thing. So it could be huge economy-wise.
Whatever you're looking for, they have a strain of weed for it. And they're called bud tenders. And, basically, do they have to take a test, or they read a book?
They have to be licensed. You get a handler's license. Yeah. And it is a general knowledge test. We did hear from a few experts that are more scientifically knowledgeable about marijuana that it could be better. That they could be a little bit more knowledgeable, the bud tenders, in terms of directing people to...
Yeah, but it's like a career out there.
Absolutely.
Everyone that we spoke to was extremely knowledgeable. I didn't even know that there was this much to know about marijuana, but it's crazy.
One of the people Amanda and Kyle met on their journey was Zach Harvey, a marijuana expert or bud tender.
This is one of my favorite strains, OG 18. It's the 18th pheno of OG Kush. Has a nice little head buzz, nice sweet, earthy, dank smell. Another popular strain these days is the Girl Scout cookies on the West Coast. You get nice purpley buds there. Really nice sweet aroma.
They have one of the higher end shops we walked into. It was almost like an Italian boutique style shop in downtown Portland. The buds were almost, it was like a museum. They had these buds on pedestals and glass. On display. With, unicorn face and OG Kush and Blue Dream.
And then, the bud tender there was like, what do you guys want to do today? You guys want to go on a hike? You want to read a book? You want to watch Netflix? Like, we have the strain for you. So it's crazy. And, they're like, do you have anxiety? Or do you have depression? Do you want to be happy? Like, do you want to be mellow? What do you want?
You guys, when did you first get to a dispensary? Was that your first day? Was that?
Gosh, when was that?
Second day in Portland.
Would you guys do lay out the whole itinerary for me? Day one we're going to go hit up this spot. Day two we're going to hit up this spot.
So we got off the plane and drove like mad people to the first grow facility.
So right after you got off the plane,
we had an interview right after we got off the plane, but then after that we went to this grow. But it was nonstop, like Amanda said. In fact, I didn't realize until we started the tour in the grow house that I hadn't combed my hair. I mean, it turned out okay, but I mean, it was
the day, right?
It was just like just nonstop. So the first grow house. I mean, if you can explain kind of the
Have you ever seen Breaking Bad?
the smells and the sights.
How big was it? Like that lab?
300,000 square feet.
300,000 square feet.
Massive.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like I told Kyle, like it feels like I'm in like a labyrinth. Like we keep walking through doors and doors and doors, and then we went down like 3 flights of stairs into an area that they were expanding. It looked like a 3-foot-story warehouse, and I'm just like, what is this building? Goes 6 feet into the ground.
They used to house large-scale speaker equipment, sound equipment.
Okay.
And the building, this huge, nobody wanted it. Nobody wanted this huge building.
It was just some empty, vacant
It was
property.
there and especially, not until weed was legalized. Weed was legalized, and it was a guy from New York, a real estate guy from New York who, if you want to call it a chance, took a chance. But really, I think he had the capital to buy this massive space.
Right.
And that's and that's what they're doing out there.
Do you remember the name of the shop?
Pistol Point.
Pistol Point.
Yeah.
That's cool. Pistol Point. So you guys toured this place. The scent must have been like.
Yeah, I think we got high just off the scent.
It was like
say that.
stepping into a marijuana plant.
Yeah.
Like there's no way. Like and it was like you felt it too. Like it was like really because they have these huge lights. How they're growing these plants, and my skin was warm, and then we walked into another room, and it was like I felt like I was in a rainforest, and then and we walked into another room, and they're power washing it down. It was insane. That was definitely the most mind-blowing part of the entire trip.
Different conditions for different types of plants, or is this
I think
like
it was
the
more
process?
different conditions for different processes.
Yeah, okay.
So, when they're, little tiny seeds, and then when they're larger plants was when they had the huge, like, watering system that was operating while we were there. So we literally saw the plant at every stage of growth, all the way up until, there was a room full of employees that were trimming the buds, and, they were separating them for different uses,
With the economy, you have all this great stuff happening, I guess, business-wise, up and up. But there's still the guy on the corner. There's still, Joe Schmo. Hit him up 11:30 at night. You can still find something outside of the legal.
Joe Schmo is definitely still out there.
There's a lot of Joe Schmoes.
On your corner, dealing street weed. I mean, especially Kyle spoke to some college students who, don't necessarily have the money to go into one of these boutique dispensaries and drop $100 for weed when you can, call up your friend and spend $20 for enough weed to last you like 3 weeks. So,
right, we were told on the black market in Oregon, because there's a lot more space to grow weed. There's a lot more growers in Oregon, but you get an ounce of pretty high grade weed comparable to some of the stuff you'd find in the dispensaries for like $50 an ounce in some cases. Whereas, in the store that's going to run you a few $100s.
Like a regular sized chocolate bar was with, cannabis in it was about $25 with tax.
$25 for a regular, like the size of a Hershey bar?
About the size of like a full size Hershey bar.
And what's like the percentage on the THC?
It was about 24%.
The Idaho thing is pretty fascinating. So I know at some point you guys drove out to Idaho to see, how cops handle business out there, because weed in Idaho is not legal. But what about the people coming in from Idaho? I'm sure there's a lot of that happening.
Yeah, definitely. So when we were in Huntington, which is the town closest to Idaho where you can buy weed legally, literally every single car that we saw parked outside of the main dispensary there had Idaho license plates on it. And I went in to talk to the shop owners because we wanted to interview them, and they were like, yeah, well, you're going to have to take a ticket like everyone else if you want to go in. And I was like, all right. Well, I took my ticket and I was like number 100 something. And, we didn't have time to wait because we had somewhere else to be. But there was a line, out the door. We met a couple actually outside of a store called 420ville in Huntington. And it was a man, I would say he was about late 60s. He was there with his wife, and he, they were a little reluctant to talk to us at first. They didn't want to be on camera, but they told us that this was their first time, coming here for this reason, and that he was recently diagnosed with what kind of cancer? I think it was prostate cancer. Yeah. And so he was coming for, marijuana that would help him with pain. And this was his very first time, that he'd ever, used marijuana. Mm-hmm. So that was definitely interesting. And then we had a group of friends that were, mid-20s that had all came over from Idaho, and they just said, that they wanted to go for a long car ride. And this was, where they wanted to go.
They said, one guy we talked to, his girlfriend was telling us that he had recently, again, he's like in his mid-20s, he had recently just started smoking. And it helped.
In his mid-20s, huh?
Yeah, and when he got home from work, that he was, stressed out, agitated more times than not, and that it just made him easier
to deal
for himself to be around himself and for his girlfriend to be around.
Right.
But they were telling us their plan to get back across the border, that they were going to wait until the sun went down. They're going to take a back route through the mountains.
The team also spoke to an Idaho man named Jeffrey who traveled with friends across state lines to pick up legalized pot.
We've taken trips into the Oregon coast before to visit some friends and family and whatnot and come back with merchandise. And we've never had an issue, just kind of precautionary to come in the border from one road and then maybe take a back road through the other side of it.
Yeah, for a bunch of stoners, this is
there's a lot of planning.
This is a lot of intense planning to avoid these police.
Hopefully, they remembered the route that they had
in the dark in the mountains
set up. Yeah. But that's, you talk about the differences between Idaho and Oregon and New York and New Jersey.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no mountain to sneak through.
Yeah, there's one.
In New York.
There's like one way in, one way out. So, regardless of where you go, there's going to be police there. There's going to be a lot of traffic. Yeah. Another thing that I was curious, because you have so many people that are coming to Oregon from states where it's illegal. And I was wondering, if you go into a shop and you ask them, can I take this weed on the plane home with me? Can I take it across state lines? Or rather, like, how do I sneak this back home with me? And the shop owners, they were not very candid, with their responses, at least not on the record. But they basically just said, it's still a federal crime, so best of luck to you.
But
with that said,
we definitely talked to people who have done it.
Yes.
We've taken weed on a plane out of Oregon, out of other states that are legal right now, that they've definitely got on a plane with weed, and it wasn't an issue. And we were told semi-informally that in Portland, if you're flying out of Portland and you get caught
by a TSA agent,
that they now defer to the local police.
Yeah, so the local police are, they might give you a fine, or they might just say throw it out. More likely, they're going to say throw it out.
Right.
I don't know if you could answer. We have a couple other things to get to, but quickly on law enforcement. Do you know if Oregon has either hired more officers or anything like that? Do you know if they've increased volume of shifts, or because it sounds like they're getting more work now if they have to deal with TSA stuff, which I'm sure isn't that often to begin with, but still, it's adding to the pile, per se.
Yeah, I think if anything, from heads of police that we talked in Portland and towns outside of Portland, it's less work.
Yeah, I would
that they have to worry about.
I would say so because it's something that you're not really patrolling for anymore. They kind of seemed nonchalant about it, like, you know, oh, that guy's just smoking weed, like, you know, I might tell him to put it out, I might just keep walking.
Right. And that's the push in New York and New Jersey. That was Phil Murphy's thing. I mean, the millions you can save on not enforcing weed, you can reallocate to other places within law enforcement. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's caused an interesting rift between the advocates, people who are against this, the whole thing between prisons and tickets and court time, police time, lawyers, and God knows what else. So some people are getting stuff out of the back door and whatnot. How is the dealer navigating? First off, is he still being bothered by law enforcement? And secondly, how are people finding him?
So we talked to some college students at Portland State University who, a couple of them were underage, unable to go into dispensary, didn't have a lot of cash. They were a college student. So they would use Craigslist. And they would set it up to where they were buying, say, a CD, shows my age, or buying a whatever, something other than weed, and then similar to how they're doing it legally in Washington, D.C., where they would give them whatever the gift was, product along with the weed. Also, here in New York, and they have this legally in Oregon, here it's illegal delivery services. There's delivery service a couple of delivery services in Brooklyn that have a selection that rivals some dispensaries. From what we've been told, it's bootleg weed products that are coming from, a lot of it's coming from legal states.
Yeah.
I think we're good.
I thought you were going to say something.
I was going to elaborate, but I was like, how much can I say?
I think we're good. I think we're good.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Another interesting group of people that you guys spoke to were senior citizens, people who had never smoked marijuana in their life, that are now 70 years old, 75.
Trying it for the first time.
First time, living with an illness or whatnot. What was that like? You know, first off, tell me a little bit about getting into a senior citizen facility, and how were they when you were asking about this stuff?
They were super welcoming to us. They had, you know, a tray of food on the table. They were all just gathered around, sitting on couches, and they really loved pot brownies. That was their method of choice. They were sharing recipes for pot brownies.
They were.
Amanda and Kyle spoke with residents at a retirement community where the seniors shared their perception of marijuana.
About a month ago, I finally realized that it does get rid of the pain, and I came to the conclusion the reason doctors don't prescribe it is because it does work. But yeah, I use it to get rid of the pain. Except if I have to be on the road for driving any place, then I won't use it, but I will when I get home in the afternoon to alleviate pain.
What's the pain?
I have a bad hip.
And what's your favorite, or what's the easiest thing to eat?
Brownies. Yeah, it's in a brownie.
And where do you get it from?
I can't reveal that information. It's a private source. Yeah.
So is it someone who makes them?
Yeah.
And why that instead of going to a shop?
It's not. It only cost me a brownie mix. That's a hell of a lot cheaper than across the street.
All right, that's going to do it from us today. Amanda, Kyle, thanks again for joining us. Audio editing and sound mixing was done by Amanda Steen, and the music was provided by Kyle Lawson. Once again, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the segment and want to hear more from the United States of Weed Project, head to SILive.com.